He has 15 years of experience in in business and distribution development. He has global experience in marketing and sales and specializes in developing strong international strategic partnerships. He also specializes in the planning and implementation of forward integrated marketing strategies. Next on the panel, we have Dr. Robert A. Monticello, who's the president at Consolidated Pathways Incorporated. With over 20 years of experience in the field of antimicrobial agents, Dr. Monticello leads a customer-faced, technology-driven team. He has, to his credit, several industry standard test methods used around the world. He's also the chief scientific advisor for the International Antimicrobial Council and is a consultant for the OECD Task Force on Biocides. Finally, from Consolidated Pathways, we have the head of business development, Mr. Prem Sadwani. He's an expert on the fashion industry with deep knowledge on fabrics, designs, chemistry, customers, as well as trends. There's nothing that he doesn't know. From N9 World Technologies, we have Managing Director, Mr. Vikram Rao. He has a background of having acquired, led, built, and transformed large businesses and brands across diverse footprints. Then we have Mr. Ganesh Srinivasan. He's the CEO of Resil Chemicals. His core functional expertise lies in nanomaterials, textiles, advanced materials. He's also a specialty chemicals expert and is an authority on sustainability and digital-led transformation. Finally, on the panel, we have Mr. Manish Kambe. He's head business development at N9 World Technologies and has a demonstrated history of developing business of innovative and sustainable technologies. Aside from this, he's skilled at developing successful marketing strategies as well. So welcome to the webinar, all of you. And let's get started straight away. We'll start with talking a bit about N9 World Technologies. So Mr. Ganesh Srinivasan, would you like to start with telling us about the core business of N9 World Technologies?
Would you like to do the presentation first and we then get on to this?
Oh, okay. Yeah, sorry. We can do that.
Yeah. Good evening, everybody, and thank you very much for joining onto this webinar. Really appreciate the time taken by one and all. Hello once again, and welcome to Jim and Bob and my other panelists. And a special welcome to Mr. Mohan, CMD of Resil Chemicals, and Mr. Vijayan, Joint MD of Resil Chemicals, who are sitting in the audience with us. So welcome one and all. Yes, move to the next slide. So the discussion is on advanced protection, and the subject to focus is on Viroban, which is an advanced antiviral and antibacterial active in textile protection. Please, next slide. So N9 World Technologies is a wholly owned subsidiary of Resil Chemicals. It's based in Bangalore. It's a manufacturer and marketer of specialty chemicals in antibacterial, cooling, and dynamic drying technologies. We are committed to the development of safe and extensively tested innovative technologies and finding a healthy balance between the consumer's requirements and the environment. It is recognized globally for creating sustainable textile finishing technologies in the areas of performance, hygiene, and wellness. Over the past 5 years, we have developed quite many technologies. But I would not like to refer to it as technologies when I sell it to the customer. In fact, what I like to do and what we have been doing over the last 5 years is to focus on romancing the customer and the brands with benefit value platforms with the help of these different technologies which we have developed. Next slide, please. So these are the platforms, hygiene, wellness, comfort, sustainability, and protection. So all the technologies developed would be forming their basis on these one or more of these platforms. Next slide. We are globally present with a focus on India and Southeast Asia and Asia. And as you can see, and we have facilities in Bangalore, which are certified for ISO, various ISO standards, and recognized by the Department of Science and Industrial Research, Government of India. So it's a wholly integrated setup from R&D, manufacturing, and business development and marketing in India, and with a global network. Next slide, please. So as I was coming, so these are some of the product innovations which we have developed over the last 5 years. They are, this is what we have done, and this is the proposition we give to the brands. And then this is a B2C, as I said, it's a B2C selling with a B2B support. We give it to the brands. We also work with the mills and the supply chain, the garmenters. And we also talk about combination platforms. For example, we could have a Viroban or an N9 with Cool It, and that would give you a cool and fresh platform. Similarly, many combinations are possible, and that's one of our biggest strengths, is that we just don't offer single value products, but we offer multiple products going in to give different combination of benefits to the customer. And this has been our focus strategy all along. Next slide, please. Next slide. So, and over the last, next slide, please. Yeah. Over the last 5 years, I think it's been, it's a matter of pride and great satisfaction that we have been able to build a large number of customers of renowned brands and customers and mills, and they have patronized our technologies and products. And I think we are indeed grateful to them for the support they have given us. And I also believe that the whole N9 team stands for trust in terms of trust in terms of service, trust in terms of product, and also a trust in terms of the kind of benefits we promise and the benefits we deliver. Next slide, please. Next slide. So these are some of the awards which we have received. Of great importance is the one in the National Technology Award in 2016 by the then President of India. And this was indeed a moment of great recognition. And this was given for the business development for N9 and commercialization of N9 pure silver in quick time. Next slide, please. So whilst to a great extent we have been, as I said, operating in India, Bangladesh, Vietnam, the vision and strategy has been to take the company to a global platform. And we were indeed fortunate to meet up with and come into a partnership agreement with Consolidated Pathways. Jim and Robert, who have already been introduced to you. Apart from the fact that Consolidated Pathways is the technical and brand ambassador for sanitized products, and we share very common values and very common mindset on forward strategies, so that we can create a global presence. We have also signed up with a supply agreement for a technology called T2019. It's a quartz-silane technology with Sanitized, which is well known and globally accredited. And with this technology and the support, the technology know-how support from Consolidated Pathways, and the global push which Consolidated Pathways will create, it will help us to create the global presence, and I think offer unique performance benefits to the entire textile industry. And I think we now look forward as partners to make and to build the future for us going forward. Next slide, please. With this, I would like to welcome Jim to take on to talk about Consolidated Pathways and Pathways expertise and way forward. Thank you all.
Thank you, Vikram. Appreciate the introduction. As you can see here, we actually have a very common mission with N9. Our mission is to provide sustainable features that enhance product performance and empower consumer sustainability. And this is something that we've been quite active in on a global basis. And we have been working closely with N9 Brazil on this as well. Consolidated Pathways is headquartered in Michigan, in the United States, Midland, Michigan, to be exact. We have a team of specialists that possess over 3 decades worth of technical and regulatory experience in the textile industry and antimicrobials in textiles specifically. We've been commercializing polymer-based antimicrobials and sustainable surface modifications for nearly 30 years. Consolidated Pathways is, as Vikram had mentioned, is the technical representative and brand ambassador for sanitized products from Switzerland. Next slide, please. A little bit more background on Consolidated Pathways. We have a very proven track record of commercializing innovations and technologies and developing those global partnerships and distribution systems within the global textile chain. We utilize that to help bring innovative programs to support pull-through at the brands and the retailers on a global basis. We provide technical support. We have a strong technical support team, and a lot of our partnerships globally assist with that. We have testing, quality assurance. Those are very important aspects of that. We also have a lot of depth in our quality assurance material balance programs. I know Dr. Monticello has already been introduced, as have I. So we can go to the next slide. A lot of our focus at Consolidated Pathways is to determine what are the consumer concerns today. And what we do is we like to translate those concerns. We recognize what those concerns are, which translates into consumer demand. And then what we do is we utilize innovative technologies in order to meet that consumer demand and meet the needs and the wants of the consumer. So consumers right now have become much more aware of how infectious viruses and dangerous microorganisms spread due to the COVID-19 pandemic and the extensive amount of media coverage that there has been about the vectors of transfer of the viruses or microorganisms. Consumers are really doing a good job of taking these preventative measures to heart. They protect themselves and their families by, washing their hands in soap and water for 20 seconds, as the health organizations are telling them, using hand sanitizers, sanitizing surfaces, being very cautious in the way in which they interact with others, keeping at least 6 feet a different distance, utilizing face masks, those type of things. There's a lot of studies, though, that are indicating here in the last 3 months that consumers are feeling very anxious, sad, they're scared, and overwhelmed by all of the information that they're getting through the media. If we go to the next slide, you'll see that the data, this comes from a Cotton Inc. study that was concluded in late May, early June of this year, shows that 66% of consumers say they feel very afraid these days. Of that 66%, there's 72% that are women, 57% that are men. 63% expect this experience to change the way they shop in the future. And actually, that's already occurring. You're seeing a lot fewer trips happening to the shopping mall. You're seeing a lot less foot traffic at retail shops. Consumers are doing more purchasing online. And they are shopping mainly for essential items, things that either are comforting them or that they feel are highly essential, like sanitizers, hand sanitizer, toilet paper, all kinds of things that have kind of changed the dynamic of consuming a little bit. Next slide, please. So with that, in the times of COVID-19, there's certainly a heightened awareness of hygiene and the need for personal safety. PPE is a very common term now. Really wasn't a common term at all 6 months ago. When you take a look at the change in vernacular over the last 6 months, it's significant. The media, health organizations, and governments have certainly made the consumer much more aware of the importance of hygiene in their lives and the importance of following the directions in order to remain safe. So after the coronavirus lockdown, personal protection is a topic that will continue to be of discussion. And as we all know, it only takes 21 times of repeating something to create a habit. The consumer has definitely been inundated by health organizations, by the government, by the media, that to follow certain routines in order to maintain their own personal safety and their family safety, and they've been doing that quite religiously. Now, the textile and the polymer industry need to be able to assist the consumer in being able to be safe, be more hygienic, and certainly a lot of the progress that has been made at N9 and with Consolidated Pathways has been focused in this area to help the consumer in this endeavor. Next slide, please. And so that's where Viroban has come from. It's an advanced antiviral active textile finish. And if we go to the next slide, you'll see that the basis of the Viroban is the T2019, which Vikram recently mentioned, and the XDS 18 from N9, which is a custom blend of that T2019. T2019 is a patented Swiss quatsilane. It's unique quatsilane in that it has a different kind of active, a different length of active than what most other quatsilanes are. It's a more modern quatsilane. It creates a highly cationic charge density on the textile surface and deactivates the spread of the virus on contact. It also acts quickly to prevent the transmission of enveloped and non-enveloped viruses. And it's not only effective on viruses, but also it's a great antibacterial technology as well. So while it has proven antiviral protection through 30 washes, it also has proven antibacterial protection through 40 washes. The added great aspect of this technology is that there's a quick traceability test that can be performed either at the mill or at the test lab in order to show that the XDS 18 was properly applied at the mill, and it takes just a matter of minutes in order to do this traceability test. On the next slide, please.
Yeah, Jim, I was just, so, I mean, I think it's greatly defined. And I was wondering whether Bob has something to say on this.
I think this is Bob Monticello, and I think that Jim put it quite well. This is a pretty unique technology. And several benefits of the technology are, number one, it has been around for quite a while. So it's well documented, well tested, well understood, and the performance is quite understood. And I think come last year, not too many people would quite understand what viruses are, nor our concern about viruses, nor our ability to manage their infectivity. And I think over the past year, we've certainly all as a general public learned a lot more about viruses, but we also specifically as scientists learned a little more about how we can manage their infectivity on surfaces. And I think this is a great opportunity to show how these technologies that have been proven, that have been out there to manage bacterial growth, we can also show antiviral performance, but also through this great combination of the Sanitized 2019 product and our custom blend XDS 18, we've been able to provide durability. Because this, as I mentioned, this is a very unique technology, very well understood to some people, the trimethoxysilane functionality and polymer backbone of this technology. And I think that's what creates a very unique situation in which we can create a polymeric coating onto surfaces that doesn't affect the hand, the feel, the taste, the smell of the fabric. But what it does is it forms a very durable polymeric coating that prevents the viruses or the bacteria from remaining infective on there. And I think that this slide really summarizes quite a bit of that, where we're acting, and the key functions of this. This is a custom blend of the well-known sanitized T2019 product. It works very quickly on viruses, as you'll see. But one of the keys is it's non-metal. There's no copper, there's no silver, there's no zinc, which are the traditional leaching type of chemistries. This is a non-metal, durable polymeric coating. So we're getting a patented quatsilane technology from Switzerland. The technology itself reduces the microbial odor that bacteria will generate, it's sustainable because we can actually use it multiple times. We can also make sure that we can launder these fabrics. We can launder these fabrics less. And when we launder fabrics less, we save time, we save money, we save energy, which is quite important. Then I mentioned it is a non-leaching quaternary silane technology, which means the active ingredient does not need to come off. It remains fixed to the surface. And it does that by forming this very high cationic charge density. Our custom blend of the Sanitized 2019 allows us to be able to bind it to any fiber type. It's a polymeric coating that binds to itself and to its surfaces, and that means that we can bind it to any type of fiber surface. Next slide, please. So I get the benefit of discussing a little bit about antiviral technology and how do we actually measure that antiviral technology. At the moment, there are not too many methodologies available for measuring antiviral performance on textiles. The current one is the ISO 18184 method that was really developed just a couple of years ago. Next slide. But what it had in mind when it developed certainly didn't know anything about the SARS-CoV-2 virus. The viruses we were concerned about at the time were also enveloped viruses, but generally we were talking about H1N1, H3N2, influenzas, feline calcivirus, but we've also started looking at some of the coronaviruses as well. So what we've actually been able to do is use the ISO 18184 test method and measure the performance against these different viruses. Each virus is very, very unique. So it's very important that you test for each specific virus. And that's really challenging when we're talking about SARS-CoV-2 because as of this time last year, SARS-CoV-2 just did not exist. So it's very challenging to exactly measure the performance of SARS-CoV-2. But as scientists, we understand what these differences are and the genetic variances between these. So we were able to pick separate and different surrogates. But the key we look at here is that H1N1, H3N2, feline calicivirus, and feline coronavirus, you can see that XDS18 treated fabrics are extremely effective against these viruses. We're looking at greater than 99% reduction in the ISO 18184 test method. We look at and need to understand that many of these technologies that are used today, they are intended to be used on textiles that are intended to be laundered. These are not disposable goods. So we do have to look at what is the durability of these types of technologies after washing. Next slide, please. And that's exactly what we did. We can take these same textiles treated with the XDS18, and then you put them through a laundering protocols, either 20 washes, 30 washes, and retest them using the same ISO 18184 test method against H3N2, influenza, and the other viruses. And you can see, even after 30 washes, we still have 99.99% reduction. The next slide also shows the activity of H1N1. And again, the same sort of 30 wash protection. And the next slide will show the same performance against the feline calicivirus. I mentioned that the work done on the work done earlier on the coronavirus is obviously quite significant and was performed directly at the Rajiv Gandhi Center for Biotechnology just recently. And again, that's quite impressive because there are very few biosafety level 3 laboratories that are able to do such testing. So when this technology came out with the quat silane performance, the next slide, please. It originally came out. Can I get the next slide, please? As an antimicrobial technology. There we are. And then one more slide, please. Because the key here really is, how does this technology actually work? How does it actually effectively manage both viral particles and bacteria at the same time. Next slide, please. So it's important to show at least the performance against this, against bacteria. We use exclusively the International Antimicrobial Council certified laboratories. And that means that laboratories around the world that have been trained and certified by the IAC to run these test methods, very specific test methods, properly. And you can see these data on 100% cotton. You're seeing a greater than a 99.9% reduction against both Staphylococcus aureus and Klebsiella pneumonia, which are the key bacterial indicators for these types of technologies. And then, of course, you do need to show not only broad spectrum activity, but broad durable activity. So we look at both 100% cotton on this slide, and then the next slide shows 100% polyester with the similar performance. We use, as I mentioned, the International Antimicrobial Council laboratories, and we also use certified laboratories around the world. We use, in this case, you're seeing we're using the AATCC 100 2019 version of the AATCC test method. The next slide, we use also a number of other laboratories, including SGS. In this case, SGS was using the ASTM E2149 test method. And this test method was written specifically to measure the antimicrobial activity of non-leaching type antimicrobial technologies. ASTM E2149 was written in 2000 and is actually a new method again in 2020 with ASTM. But you can also see after 20 washes, 99.9% reduction on cotton. And the next slide shows the same sort of performance on polyester. So we have very well documented technical results showing antimicrobial activity, antibacterial activity, antiviral activity, both using standard test methods and using modifications of those standard test methods in order to compensate for today's pandemic virus of SARS-CoV-2. So with that, I'll hand that back to Jim on the next slide, where we can talk about claims and compliance of the XDS 18.
Thanks, Dr. Monticello. As we look at the custom blend of sanitized T2019 from N9, certainly of primary concern is when you're shipping products to treated articles to different parts of the world, you want to make certain that that's a registered product. BPR regulation, certain T2019 has complete compliance. This is a custom blend of T2019, which means that it meets the custom blend requirements of the US EPA. It's a blended registered active within the EU, so it has covered under BPR regs as well. So it has REACH compliance. It is US EPA registered under T2019. We can go to the next slide. T2019 also has a considerable amount of added certifications. Obviously, it has such a 95 listing for the BPR. It's US EPA listed. It's ZDHC level 3 compliant. It's Ecotech standard 100 and Blue Sign listed as well. The treated articles have treated with the XDS 18 were tested for skin sensitization according to the international norm OECD 406 and passed successfully the repeated insult test patch test testing, and it's AOX free and readily degradable in biological wastewater treatment plants according to OECD 301A. Let's go to the next slide. We take a look at the claims and compliance. Obviously, Viroban is a performance-based trademark. It is focused on the availability of getting the Viroban marked is based on the performance of the treated article itself. And it is as an antiviral and antibacterial agent. Treated textile article performance is verified in order to qualify to use the Viroban trademark. So durability testing for the Viroban trademark utilizes the A-Square 100 and ISO 20743, and the also not shown here is the ASTM 2149 method as well. If you go to the next slide. Viroban's used on all kinds of apparel, face masks, home textiles, medical coveralls, work uniforms, a broad range of home fashions and textiles as well. Next slide. So we look at the Viroban brand and hang tag. There's the standard Viroban tags that are available, as shown here, but then also hang tags and packaging can be customized based on the customer needs. One of the things that's important to recognize is that the Viroban is very unique and has quite a differentiation from other technologies. It's sustainable, fast-acting antiviral and antibacterial agent, as Dr. Monticello mentioned earlier. Its quick traceability is really important. When you take a look at the analytical tests that can be performed on a treated fabric in a matter of minutes, is a great quality assurance tool at the mill. It can show you the presence of this technology on the fabric, so that you can be assured that that you're going to get the performance that was that you originally achieved in the trial. It can also be applied by exhaust or padding, saturation and spray technologies. So it's quite diverse in its application capabilities, and it's also very suitable for even sulfur dye denims that you'll see. Sulfurs will inactivate a lot of other antimicrobial actives, but it doesn't inactivate this technology at all. So it's dry cleaning resistant. It has a global registration, as we discussed, and of course, it has a technical, marketing, branding, and supply chain support from N9 and Consolidated Pathways. One of the keys here when we talk about claims is what can be said and can't be said. If we go to the next slide, we'll talk about this regulatory coverage. In the next slide, a lot of the concern that occurs among brands and retailers is what can we do to communicate the benefit and the feature to the consumer. And while the N9 XDS18 is applicable to face masks, apparel, and other textiles for the Indian and global markets, and it can qualify for sanitized branding, one of the keys here is how do we communicate that it's a fast-acting antibacterial agent when in certain regulatory environments like the United States and the EU, the terms viral or virus just simply isn't allowed because these are health claims. And that does, in the United States, you can't make a health claim and utilize the treated articles exemption in the regulatory field. And so if we go to the next slide, we'll talk a little bit about that. The US EPA claims that are permitted in the United States are that a product contains a antimicrobial agent in order to control odors. If you notice there, the claim is for the treatment, not for the product. That's an important aspect of the regulatory side of things in the U.S. Consolidated Pathways has been working with US EPA claims for over 25 years. And through the course of that, we've been very conversant with what can be said and what can't be said. Certainly, one of the keys here is that you make an aesthetic claim attached to the actual performance itself. So when we talk about reduces odors from microorganisms, notice that odors is used as an aesthetic claim for that reduction of microorganisms. Guards against degradation from microorganisms. Those are the kind of things. If you talk about reduces the growth of bacteria, you can't just say that. You have to say reduces the growth of bacterial odors, because you have to qualify that with an aesthetic claim in order to be able to use the treated articles exemption with the US EPA. Go to the next slide. This shows some of the claims that can't be used. You can't just say that a product is antibacterial. You can't say it's germicidal. You can't say it's antiviral. You can't say it's a viricide. You can't say the surface kills common gram-positive and gram-negative bacteria. These are all things that can't be said because these are considered health claims by the US EPA, whether it's a viral or virus, killing 99% of the germs. All of those are considered health claims and are not allowed under the treated articles exemption by the US EPA. And if you go to the next slide, As I indicated, the big concern with an EPA is that the public doesn't think that a treated article is going to improve their health, because the entire concept of the treated articles exemption by the US EPA is that you are making claims for the treated article itself, or the product, not for the person wearing the product. And so one of the key things that the EPA does not allow on any hang tags or any kind of claims is the term health, even if a company's name has health in it, like HealthGuard or Health Shield or a name like that. That's not permitted on a hang tag. So even a company name cannot be used on a hang tag because it's considered a health claim by the US EPA. Next slide. So what are some of the things that can be provided as a claim is, as we mentioned earlier, the consumers are quite inundated with the instructions from health organizations and the government to make certain that they're using hand sanitizers, that they're sanitizing their surfaces. Well, Sanitize is a brand that has been around actually since 1953, and it's been involved in antimicrobials for a long time. And the Sanitized branding actually is approved for use on hang tags in the United States under the treated articles exemption. And in this slide, you see the house, which is a online marketing tool that Sanitized has for brands that are utilizing their technology. And so they're listed in the different units, whether it's apparel and bath, sleep. They're able to be to highlight it in the house that Sanitize has, and that they take forward to different retailers. Next slide, please. And so as you look at utilizing and communicating to the consumer, what is the benefit that's being provided, whether it's by Viroban or just the XDS 18 on a global basis. Certainly Sanitized ActiFresh is a brand that communicates that to the consumer that has had their awareness heightened about Sanitized and the sanitization aspects of trying to prevent obtaining COVID-19. On the next slide, please. So as we look at that, again, Sanitized is a quality seal offering consumers transparency, trust, and hygiene function. When you look at promoting the benefits of the treatment, certainly Sanitized is a great way to communicate that to the consumer. It allows you to integrate online and print advertising. Those tools are provided by Sanitized as well. And then we can combine it with other freshness marketing tools. So not only is it apparent, as Dr. Monticello had talked about, that there's an antiviral component here, but also an added level of freshness that comes along to the product as well, because it's got the Sanitized ActiFresh tag. Using N9 XDS 18 can qualify for utilizing the Sanitized branding. If we go to the next slide, you can add that freshness switch that, again, extends that beyond just sanitization, but also into freshness as well. It's only permitted to be used in combination with the Sanitized brand, but this is a graphic file that can be utilized on your design requirements. And as we go to the next slide, you'll see a lot of the different marketing materials and tools that can be utilized with the technology, whether it's hang tags, whether it's point of sale placards, or training for the sales personnel at a retail store. Those kind of brochures are also applicable. And as we go to the next slide, I'll turn it back over to Vikram.
Thank you, James, and thank you, Dr. Monticello. Thank you very much. We'll now have a 2-minute recap through a video, and then we will be over to the question and answers with Surabhi. Thank you.
Thank you for that very informative and enlightening presentation. So in fact, I was so eager to talk about the innovation that you all have introduced that I completely jumped the gun back there and I went straight to the question and answer bit. But I'm going to circle back to Mr. Srinivasan now and I'm going to ask him what I was going to ask him back then. So could you tell us a bit about the core business of N9 World Technologies, Mr. Srinivasan? Sir, you're on mute, please. Please unmute us.
Good evening, everyone. N9 is an innovative specialty materials company committed to offering unique, patented next-gen technologies in three main areas: hygiene, comfort, and wellness. N9 products are differentiated, offers differentiated value to customers. They are cost-effective, sustainable, and the core business of N9 is textile finishes that provide functional features to apparel that benefit end users.
That's very interesting, Mr. Srinivasan. Tell us a bit more about the products and solutions that you're offering to the textile industry and the apparel industry.
Yeah, as I said, there are three buckets of in which we have products. The first one is hygiene space. In hygiene space, we have globally compliant antimicrobial and antiviral technologies. In the second one, we have the comfort space where temperature control technologies are popular, such as quick drying and cooling technologies. Coolit is one of our very popular products. Under the wellness space, consumers are protected from dangerous UV rays, skin moisture management, and capsulated active technologies. These products are there in that bucket. So we offer all the three range. And our products like N9 Pure Silver have won several innovation awards, including the India President Award. These functional finishes have patronage over 150 Indian brands and global brands in diverse segments like innerwear, activewear, casual wear, home textiles, and uniforms.
All extremely relevant in the wake of the pandemic, I'm sure. Mr. Rao, would you like to tell us a bit more about this partnership that you're in with Consolidated Pathways and Sanitized AG of Switzerland?
Yes, sure. As I mentioned, we have entered into a partnership with Consolidated Pathways and Sanitized as a supply with a supply agreement for their T2019 technology. So the way it works is it's like a triangle where we get the technology from Sanitized, the T2019. We get the know-how from Consolidated Pathways to take this T2019 and formulate it into N9 XTS18, as Dr. Monticello said, and with a fair amount of research which has gone into it by Consolidated Pathways. And we now have a durable and truly performing and sustainable technology, which is with the Swiss antiviral and antimicrobial know-how also built inside. And we are going to take these cost-effective custom blends to the world through the arrangements which we have, and as well as offer them with the kind of benefits and the kind of protection which we just talked about to the Indian and the South Asian markets. This is what it would mean. Yes, thank you.
Mr. Kruger, would you like to add something here?
Yeah, we're excited to be teaming up with and partnering with N9 in this area. Their level of expertise and service into the industry has been proven over time. Their expertise at in the development areas and innovation certainly matches well with what we do in the areas of research and development. But also when we look at the customer service side of things, it's such a critical component in commercialization of any technology, and that's something that N9 performs extremely well at. And we're just really excited to be partners with N9 in this area with this technology, bringing something very unique to the marketplace and something that is extremely beneficial to the consumers.
Very innovative indeed, from what I've been reading up, and I was reading a bit about Consolidated Pathways and Sanitized AG before the webinar started. Dr. Monticello, Bob, would you like to tell us a bit more about the company?
Yeah, we're very excited to have teamed up with Sanitized AG in Switzerland, really for a number of different reasons. Not only the fact that they are well known and been in this industry since 1935, but they're also really on the cutting edge of new developmental technologies, which is really why we decided to pair up with them for the introducing and expanding the use of polymer-based antimicrobial technologies. We're also working with them to understand a little more surface modification technologies that go beyond biocides, that are not just controlling the bacteria that grow or the viruses that propagate on these surfaces, but also manage those surfaces so that they are less hospitable to that growth. They cannot become a fomite for transmission. So we're really working with some excellent scientists at Sanitized, and really pleased to be able to bring that technology along with our experience to the N9 world.
James, I'm going to come back to you here. Can you tell us a bit about the significance of the Sanitized Quality Seal?
Sure. When you take a look at, especially in the last 6 months, Sanitized has a completely different connotation to the consumer than it did, say, a year and a half ago. Consumers have been constantly barraged by the media, by health organizations, and by the government on the importance of maintaining sanitized surfaces, the importance of using hand sanitizer, and that commonplace knowledge now among consumers relate sanitized to safety. And so the sanitized mark and quality seal is something that's utilized, is taken very seriously by Sanitized, the company. They only allow certain use of that mark and that's a performance requirement. A product needs to perform to a certain level. It needs to be a product that is going to be useful, be able to utilize the antibacterial, antiviral activity in a proper way, and it needs to be able to be to utilize that mark in a manner that is responsible to the consumer.
I'm sure Indian brands and retailers are going to be very eager to offer these new levels of protection to the end consumer. So moving back to Mr. Rao, sir, how is this partnership, in your opinion, going to benefit the Indian textile industry?
Yeah, I think it's not just the Indian textile industry. I think we look at our company as a one-stop shop. If you look at all the various technologies which we have been talking about, in terms of not just antibacterial or antimicrobial or antiviral, but in terms of cooling, dynamic dyeing, across the various platforms, we are truly a one-stop shop. And as we speak, we constantly innovate. We have an R&D pipeline going in. We are now looking at launching a natural antibacterial for those who would prefer to have it. Today, natural is also a big word with all that's happening with Ayush and what we have. So we are a constant innovator with benefit values to the customer in mind in the area of textiles. And I think we are truly a one-stop shop. And with this, and with sustainability and trust as a clear hallmark of what we do, with the service which we provide, I think it will truly be a global player and an Indian player to meet the requirements of brands, garment exporters, textile manufacturers, you name it, to all.
Jim, what do you think is going to be the benefit to the textile industry at large?
That was directed to me.
Yes.
The overall benefit to the textile industry at large is, obviously, the consumer has gotten to understand the concern for the growth of microbes and the spread of microorganisms in their environment. The added benefit that we have is being able to bring this very unique and beneficial technology forward with not only the technology, but the ability to properly communicate the benefits to the consumer as well, which, you can have great technologies, but if the consumer doesn't understand the benefit to them, they won't necessarily buy it. So the uniqueness of this is not only the technology, but the ability to communicate the benefit to the consumer.
So Dr. Monticello, would you like to tell us a bit more on the actual technology that you are going to be launching in India?
Yeah, we're really pleased to, because that's one of the strengths that we're bringing in our ability, again, to work with the Sanitized team to bring that globally and especially to India. The Viroban technology we had indicated before is N9XTS18, based on the T2019 technology from Sanitized. It's a quaternary amine bound to a silane backbone. And basically at the end of that, it just means that there's a functional part and a polymer part. And that polymer binds the technology to the surface so it doesn't have to come off. We're very pleased to be able to take that technology with our custom formulation of XTS18. We've been able to cure that directly onto these fabrics. And then through some of the advances in testing, we've been able to measure specifically the SARS-CoV-2 performance on these treated textiles. 99.99% or greater is a great potential solution for managing the spread of the pandemic. And that's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to give just another tool for us. I mean, there's always the hand washing, there's always the social distancing, there's always the cleaning that we have to do. We're trying to provide one more tool to help us all get through this pandemic. And that's exactly what this technology is going to be able to do.
So very important as the focus shifts on to health and hygiene now, and with the COVID-19 virus. So Mr. Rao, now that the technology will be available in India, what is going to be your marketing and promotional strategy?
I think I mean, honestly speaking, what we have done for the last 5 years, when 5 years ago, many of these technologies, special finishes in textiles was more about creating the market than an available market. At that point in time, an N9 pure silver antimicrobial or cooling dynamic technology, they were not there. And there was no market, already created market. These markets were created with a lot of working with the brands and giving them value. So I think the strategy is going to be more of the same with this new technology added to this. It gives us a great amount of flexibility. Again, we will partner with the brands and partner with garment exporters, partner with mills, and take the whole initiative forward. So I think it's a great. I think our strategy will be the same, and we are also very flexible. I mean, as we speak now, I think with the kind of online activity in apparel now, a lot of people working from homes, we now look at the rate of home becomes the kind of clothing at the rate of home becomes a key, where you're looking at comfort, you're looking at hygiene, you're looking at whether if it's warm weather, you're looking at the kind of textiles, I mean, the kind of finishes which will give you. So you take a Moistex, which is moisture controlling, cooling, you name it, all these kind of drying, and of course the hygiene of anti-odor. And so this is going to be more of the same, and this technology will strengthen us both with the Indian brands and global brands and the textile supply chain.
So I suppose it'll help make consumers feel more safe, more protected from the virus in general.
I think today the consumers, after the pandemic after the coming of the pandemic, I think there is a very, very significant desire for hygiene and protection. So definitely, and it is there, and even when we have the tests for all, the ISO is the standard, 18184 is the standard. We do, I mean, against all the viruses which we have been talking about. But then again, the consumer, he asks, is there something which can tell us whether this works against a SARS-CoV-2? So then you look into, making all the effort to work with a reputed lab, use our, under the leadership of Ganesh, to take this forward and then get the whole thing and test out and say that it's a proven technology for protection also against the specific virus which we have. So yes, there is a great degree of, awareness and desire to have protection in anything which is there. Safe to breathe, safe to touch, safe to sit, sometimes safe to walk. People are also looking at floor coatings with antibacterial and antiviral technologies. So it's all there.
So no longer a pipe dream, basically. Mr. Srinivasan, would you like to add something here? What do you think?
Yeah, actually, SARS-CoV-2 virus causes this COVID-19 disease. And after this pandemic, every textile company in the world started looking at protection as a key, functionality into the textiles and against protection against viruses and bacteria, especially SARS-CoV-2 has become very popular. And Biroban technology actually helps to, the PPE segment and the mask segment to build antiviral functionality without compromising on other functionalities and features such as breathability. And India, as you know, is known for home textiles. And this segment, bed and bath segment, is very popular, and we are quite a leadership position in the world in exports in home textiles. This segment, we are trying to work with this segment to make them more competitive by offering new technologies, especially antiviral technologies globally, so that India becomes much more competitive. And at the same time, domestic apparel brands, they also look for extended safety to their customers, those who walk into malls and shops and showrooms. So they want to protect, the consumers, at the same time offer them products which can help them to protect themselves. So this is driving this, Viroban technology is driving this finished quality with the sustainability goals. And you know that the product also ticks all the boxes with respect to regulations and registrations across the world. ZDHC, ICA, EPA, everything it covers. And we'll be more than glad to share all our details with our industrial partners and mills in India and global partners for helping them to meet the global regulatory and, the standards for launching these products.
So there's something very important you said in there. So far we've been talking about industry partners. Mr. Rao, would you like to tell me what would be the benefit to the end consumer? Like someone like me, if I need to go into a store and buy something which has Viroban technology, how does that affect me?
I think you need to imagine two garments lying side by side. One which with a tag which says that there is a treatment which gives you a hygiene a hygiene value or a protection value, whether it's against a virus or against a bacteria, and another one without a tag, so which says nothing. So what would you like to go for today?
Certainly the one with the hygiene tag.
So that's where that's where the question is. I mean, it is there, and there are different brands, so it's not just us. But you look at the overall consumer sentiment, as Jim put in his slides. There is the pursuit of safety is top of the mind in everybody's, is top of mind with everybody now. Yeah.
So what are the geographies that you're going to be targeting with this new product?
With this new product, actually, it's global. We were hitherto operating in India and Southeast Asia, and now with what this brings to us is the certifications, as they were describing, and all the regulatory approvals, EPA, US BPR, US EPA, EU BPR. So that allows us now to export this technology on the antibacterial, antimicrobial platform. And as far as India is concerned, to a large extent, the focus will be on the antiviral platform. So this gives us this flexibility to access global markets as needs could be and as the laws and regulatory laws are, and gives us the flexibility to go there. Hitherto, we were not able to go to the global markets with all the certifications which were required.
Mr. Srinivasan, Ganesh, I'm going to ask you something about sustainability. How important is it, and is it incorporated in your product design?
I think sustainability is the key to the whole business today. And sustainability is actually, we build the sustainability factors in the design stage itself. When the product is made, we want to make sure that it meets all the global regulatory standards, and also it meets all the sustainability requirements of the consumers today. Because the water, energy, these are the main concerns for processing mills, and also how much of consumption of these natural resources are happening during processing and during during use of the product. I think so. The whole design is made with this intent in mind, and that in-end products can be easily integrated into many of the standard textile processing. So you don't really need to worry about the compatibility with various other textile chemicals and so on. At the same time, the sustainability is very important in terms of, for example, laundering frequency. Saving water. Wash less and wear more is a concept which most of the people look for today, and it also helps to save even the consumer side. If the apparel is odor free and also hygienic, then you don't need to really wash it often. So that way the consumers can also save time, water, and energy. So this whole game of sustainability is so important to the new generation, that they are really looking for apparels with products which are highly sustainable, so that they can contribute to the society by buying those products and wearing them. And these products, Viroban technology is also quite durable for 30 to 40 washes. Home laundering, we can design it as per the requirement, and therefore it is quite useful in providing sustainable solutions to the environment.
Mr. Rao, what is the focus in the near future now? What are the future plans?
I think I've covered the things in my previous, mostly covered. I think it's more of the same. And I also see that a lot of questions there.
Yes.
The audience, and I think
there are.
we owe it to the audience to also.
There are a lot of audience questions. I'm going to just pick a few. I'm going to start. There's a question from Mr. Kruger. So, James, US EPA and EU BPR registration isn't required for antimicrobials in India. So why should a company treat its products with a US EPA and EU BPR registered antimicrobial here in a country like that?
Yeah, that's a great question. The amount of work that it takes in order to get a US EPA or EU BPR registration involves a significant amount of testing. When you look at those registrations, they want to be very specific, that registration very specific to the end use. And so, for instance, with the T2019, it can be used on underwear, socks, all the way over to home fashions. So very close skin contact, which requires a lot of testing for skin toxicity, to be able to look at the skin patch test, look at whether there's irritation. Those kind of things are really important for safety, and certainly a responsible company that serves the Indian market wants to make certain that whatever product they use is safe for the end user. They can be assured of that if something is US EPA or EU BPR listed.
James, talking about the same topic, we're still on the topic of tests. So there's another question. A lot of times, different laboratories that perform the same test method generate test results that aren't even close to being the same. So somebody wants to know what happens then?
Okay, well, certainly the test methods, whether they're AATCC methods, ISO methods, were written fairly broadly in the day. And so what happens oftentimes is laboratory has their own individual procedures that they utilize within the application of those methods. What's unique out there now, in the last 5 years, the International Antimicrobial Council has developed their IEC verified test reports. What they've done is they've developed a list of procedures that are standardized, that IEC, International Antimicrobial Council verified certified laboratories utilize when asked to generate an IEC verified report. What that does is allows the lab tech to actually use the same procedures, whether it's in a lab at SGS or BTS or another lab in the United States like Intertech. They can all use the same procedures within the method, which can generate then this very similar test results. If they don't do that, you can get that variability in test results, even though you're looking at the same fabric with the same application levels, utilizing the same method. Because labs use different procedures within the method, they can get a variety of test results. So the thing that the IEC has done is they've been able to tighten those procedures up, been able to instruct the certified laboratories on how to utilize those procedures, and then they actually have a verification procedure that those process that shows that those procedures have been
used, and that results in a IEC verified test report. Jim, we have one more question. Someone wants to know, can we sell our product as an antiviral product in the USA under the treated articles exemption?
No, you cannot make an antiviral claim under the treated articles exemption. The treated articles exemption, it's basically what that does. It allows you to use a USEPA registered antimicrobial on a product and then make a claim for the registered antimicrobial protection of that product. When you say that something's antiviral, now the US EPA considers that a health claim, and they do not allow that to be used in a treated article exemption. What would result is if you make an antiviral claim, then you would have to get your product registered either as a pesticidal device with the US EPA or as a medical device with the FDA.
Okay, Manish, there's a question for you. Can Viroban be used with other functional finishes?
Yes, Viroban can be used with other functional finishes. It can be used in combination also as per the finish. For example, if it is a wicking agent or a cooling agent, you can use it in a combination. If there are some products like all in water repellent finishes, then you have to use Viroban first, then followed by the OWR finish. So it depends upon what combinations you are used. You can use either a one bath process or you can use in two bath operations.
So what is the minimum amount of Viroban that can be put on textiles so that they become antiviral, to make them antiviral?
Okay, so textiles, basically we have been following a 20 wash durability or a 30 wash durability requirement, because when we have launched this product, the consumers want some amount of durability. So to get that durability, 6% is what is the minimum amount of N9XTS 18, which we are recommending for as per the weight of the fabric.
Manish, an audience member wants to know, what are the clear claims that can be done on treated articles to be marketed in India and abroad related to antimicrobial?
Okay, if it is a case of India, you can make antibacterial, antimicrobial claims as per, and with a disclaimer that it has been tested as per so and so protocol, various So N9XTS 18 can meet various antibacterial test protocols like ASTM 2149, ATCC 100, JSL. So if you have followed those test protocols, you can make a claim of that it is meeting the antibacterial requirement.
And what about abroad?
Okay, in the case of abroad, of course, you can, like for example, if you're doing an antibacterial, in the case of India, you can mention antibacterial, antimicrobial, but if it is some, say a USA, you cannot make those direct claims. You'll have to be making claims like inhibits the order coming out of bacteria. You cannot write directly antibacterial or antimicrobial, but you can write something like resist order from bacteria. So those are some claims which are permitted, some which are not permitted. So it's a whole list. So we can also offer that kind of support to the end consumer or to the brand actually, or to the mill, that when they use a particular finish, as per the region, what can be claimed, what cannot be claimed as per the region.
Dr. Monticello, there's another question I think that would be very relevant to you. If the product is based on Quaternary Selene, how is it different from other Quaternary Selene products that are available in the market?
Yeah, it's another good question. There are many different Quaternary silanes available on the marketplace. And this type of technology was actually invented back in the 1960s. So it's pretty well known from a chemistry standpoint, the exact molecule. But the key in getting that exact molecule is in the cooking of the concentrate. How do you get to that molecule with all the other components that may be present and the exact molecule that's in there? That's really a key. So we're working with two different things here. We're working with a very unique quat silane. This one has 14 carbon chains. 14 carbon chains works a little differently towards the bacteria and the viruses than some of the traditional 18 carbon chains. So we've got an advantage of a slightly different carbon chain that reacts to the bacteria, the bacterial membranes a little differently. We've got a very well-defined manufacturing process of the concentrate. But then moving from that T2019 to the XTS18, we've used our know-how from the past 30-something years, exactly how to get that quat silane ready to react to surfaces. We've developed this system that creates a pre-polymer, if you will, that reacts to those surfaces, extremely durable. So this is something that is very unique in the industry. You've got a technology that we know exactly how to make it the best. And then we've taken that and created even better custom formulation that can be applied onto these surfaces.
Are there any ecological risks of releasing heavy metals?
There certainly are, and you have to be very aware about what heavy metals can get released. This is why we're focusing on this non-leaching, non-heavy metal, non-metal technology. This is the only technology on the market today that truly binds to the surface. The active ingredient does not need to come off. It forms this highly cationic charge, and that high cationic charge interacts with the membranes of the bacteria or the proteins of the viral envelope, and actually reacts with them and holds them, and in most cases just destroys them. So it's not a heavy metal. So that's one of the best things about this technology. It doesn't have that concern to the environment.
That's interesting. Prem, you haven't spoken yet. Would you like to tell me about the kind of technical, marketing, and supply chain support that will be provided to customers of the technology?
I think most of the points have been covered pretty well. But one interesting thing about this technology, which has been highlighted, I would like to reemphasize, is that today sustainability is a lot about traceability, and the technology here we are talking about is traceable. And that's the unique thing about this technology, that you got a technology which has a traceability element, which makes life much more easier for the brands also and the mills also who are involved on the manufacturing side.
There's one more very interesting question. Bob, someone wants to know, can Viroban be applied to finished garments? Can you spray it on a t-shirt and will it then be a protected garment?
Yeah, that's a good question. With the concern about stores opening back up again and people trying on fabrics and then returning those fabrics that don't quite fit, what do you do with those fabrics? So really, this is a very unique technology. By the time we get it down to the custom formulation, you can spray it, you can exhaust it, you can pad apply it. So the utility of the product is really quite impressive, because you can apply it in all these different ways, and as long as you dry it, you're going to cross-react that polymer. So it's quite a unique technology where you can apply it in all those different fashions.
So what are the limitations to this technology, if any at all? Are there?
Well, I think the biggest limitation is the industry's understanding of how do you test it, how do you show its performance. Back many of these test methods, the AATCC 100, for example, was written back in the 1960s for technologies that were heavily leaching, that actually would come off the fabric, and that's what they'd show it for, the AATCC 147 or zone of inhibition tests. So one of the limitations is really getting the public to understand what this technology is. The fact that it is truly functional, but you also have to use some unique tests and unique antimicrobial tests in order to define and demonstrate the performance. And we can do that. We work directly with the International Antimicrobial Council. As explained, I'm the vice chair of the ASTM E35 Antimicrobial Committee, and I'm a consultant for OECD. So we work really closely with these testing communities. And I work very closely with the test laboratories to make sure that they understand the nuances of microbiological testing and understand that a lot of these different technologies have different ways that we have to show their performance because they are so unique. So I definitely recommend for any of these types of technologies that you go back to your suppliers and you ask them, how should I test for the performance of your product? Because they're the ones that know the best way to measure the performance. And really, it's just a matter of educating, making sure the public understands this technology and how to measure it.
Bob, interesting follow-up question. Is this a technology which is applicable to infant and kids wear as well? Is there any toxicity or skin data, skin safety data that's available? Yeah,
I mean, that's one of the advantages of this technology, and that's why we're promoting it on a global basis, because it is US EPA registered. One of the earlier questions was why should we use an EPA registered technology if we're not using that product in the US, for example? I mean, obviously we're going to promote US EPA registered products because we're in the US, and that's what we're looking at. But I also look at that because of the high standards that it brings. the testing that has to be done on those treated articles in order to get US EPA registration is extensive. The safety testing, skin toxicity testing, all that's important. So if you're working with an antimicrobial technology that is not EPA registered, the first question is, why is it not EPA registered? So an EPA registered technology sort of answers a lot of those questions. Of course it's safe. Of course it's been tested. That's why it's on that list. If your product is not on that list, you have to ask why.
There are a lot of more questions, but we have gone over time. Mr. Rao, would you like to take some more questions? Or
Yeah, I think since they have been here and with us patiently looking at questions being answered, I'm sure that the number of attendees would taper off with time, but I think I would like to take on as many questions as we can. Please go ahead.
right. So would you like to take this on? Since all the yarn and fabric qualities are different, does each fabric have to be third-party tested and approved if the customer wants Viroban hang tags?
Would you like to answer this, Manish?
Manish?
Yeah.
Bob?
Okay, yeah.
Manish, would you like to?
Okay, yeah. So I will take this question. So with regards to, yeah, whenever you go for any program, it requires that it has to be tested for the ISO 18484 protocol if you are going to take the case of or going to make the claim for antiviral finish. So of course we will say that yes, whichever different program or wherever some amount of testing has to be done. Of course, the level of testing won't be does not require to be done so high, or it's not even possible also because the test costs are very high. Number one. Number two, there is a waiting period for 2 to 3 months. So the testing won't be as easy as the case was in the case of antibacterial or antimicrobial finish. But of course, we do suggest that when you have different substrates and different articles to be tested, to be treated, the testing has to be done. And that's the reason, if you see during our presentation, we covered various substrates. We covered the polyesters, the cotton, the main fibers or the main substrates. We have covered them to give an assurance to the brands or to the mills that the N9-XTS heating is performing and giving antiviral properties on all the substrates.
Can I elaborate just a little bit on that? And I think the key with the polymer technology that we have, we're really changing that surface from a polyester or a cotton to a surface coated with that polymer. So the advantage is we can make a direct correlation. You know, Manish, you mentioned very accurately, antiviral testing is very difficult, is very challenging, time consuming and expensive. But what we have the benefit of is having that antiviral activity, and we can back correlate it to antibacterial activity, which we can back correlate to quantitative evaluation and quantitative analysis of the technology on the surface. So we can make that link. We can make that direct link to how much technology is on the surface and to our expected antiviral performance. So which is quite a beneficial thing.
Jim, there's a very interesting question. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. There's a very interesting question. It says, will the test result of SARS-CoV-2 be made available on the product?
Yeah, I believe that the plan, N9's plan, is to make that testing available, and with an NDA, we can go through the the extensive test parameters that were used. I think Dr. Monticello can speak to that better than I can as far as those parameters. And the key here in any antiviral testing is that are the testing parameters that are utilized, and that's one of the things that Dr. Monticello alluded to earlier in his presentation. You can have a great deal of confidence in this test data because of the level of expertise that was utilized in conducting those tests.
I'm sorry, I think my screen seems to be stuck, but if you can hear me, there are a couple more questions that I can ask.
Sure.
Okay, we can hear you.
Bob, what's the impact of ironing on the fabrics treated with Biroban?
Ironing does give a very high temperature to the surface, and you just have to be careful about making sure that you don't burn the fabric. But this technology itself can withstand up to 185 degrees Celsius.
Someone wants to know, if you overdose on the fabric, is there a danger to the skin? I mean, if you use it in the inside layer of a mask, can you breathe it in?
That's another great question, and something we have to be concerned about, which is why we're using the polymer technologies. And the overdosing won't necessarily happen because it's in the process. You're going to be curing the fabric on. Overdosing is extremely difficult to be able to do in a manufacturing setting. But the benefit, again, it's a polymer technology. Unlike particle chemistries, where you have to be a little concerned about whether that particle can come off and get inhaled, this is a polymer technology and it just doesn't have the option.
Okay, somebody wants to know, how does one qualify for sanitized branding?
Yeah, when we take a look at the need for, when someone wants to become branded with sanitized, it's largely based on performance and looking at the what the product is focused on. And so it's looked on an individual basis, but the key there is performance. It's a performance brand. It's there's a certain level of durability, a minimum of 20 washes that has to be maintained with a high level of performance in order to qualify. And then also, as mentioned earlier, it's one of the keys is what is the target audience and what is the product that it's going to be applied to.
I'm going to take one final question. Is this applicable to all kinds of fabrics and its blends? Bob, would you like to take that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. As we indicated before, we only showed data on 100% cotton and 100% polyester, but that's just as a substrate. We certainly tested on nylon, spandex, polycotton blends, wovens, knits. Polymer technologies are really unique. And since they bind, these silanes will form these siloxane bonds. They'll bind to each other. They'll bind to the surface. They can be applied to just about everything. And unlike some of the metal technologies that won't work on wool, won't work on silk, this is a unique technology that can work on those as well.
One final question. Sorry, I'm going to go back on my word and take one final question. What are the labs recommended for antibacterial and antiviral testing?
Yeah, we work, as I mentioned earlier, we work exclusively with the International Antimicrobial Council certified laboratories. And as Jim Kruger just indicated, these are laboratories that have been trained and certified through the IAC in order to be able to perform these test methods. The IAC, which you can find online, has a variety and a lot of certified laboratories around the world. We recommend that you can look for those. In India, there's a number of those laboratories, Sri Lanka as well. So you can actually look for IAC certified test laboratories. The key there is to make sure you get a report that is IAC verified. That's what we look at. That means that the technician that ran the test knows exactly how to do it. They're up to date on the latest types of test methods and the latest technologies and techniques within those methods. So it's very important we look at IAC certified labs with an IAC verified test report.
Thank you so much, all of you. I believe my picture is still frozen, but there you go. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining in today. Is there anything more that you'd like to add, Mr. Rao?
I think I'd just like to thank everyone, all the participants, all our customers and those interested in associating with us, and for coming and joining this webinar. I hope that they have been enthused with they have been benefited with information and insights into what we are doing and why we are doing it. And it's a big thank you to all of them for having been with us here today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you to all the panelists. We're going to wrap up the webinar now.